but it's like a constant pelting of fucking eggs coming out. Oh no, fuck you should try to make something.
Sure.
Like, I just made some raw eggs. Like and on.
Hey, what's going on?
Nothing much. All
How
good
are
here. Oh, all good here.
Awesome. I appreciate you doing this.
No problem. It's fun.
I'm Adam, by the way. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
So
Jens,
this is Jens. Nice to meet you, man.
Exactly.
So this is a podcast about you and your journey in music, and we're going to talk about the new album coming out, Survive.
Yeah. Okay.
Cool. Awesome, man. Well, first off, talk to me about where were you born and raised?
Well, I'm from Sweden, so I was born and raised in Sweden, Stockholm area, and then later in a city called Malmö, which is to the south. I guess you could call it the Texas of Sweden.
Okay.
This region, like they have funny accent and stuff here, and like a little bit, different. But yeah, and then I got to the States playing with a guy called Yngwie Malmsteen, who's a guitar player, also from Sweden, and we did a bunch of stuff in the 80s. And then I've been back and forth. I've been working with some strange, like prog music in the 90s, and then late 90s I joined this band called Stratovarius. We have recorded something like, with me, I think it's like 10 albums. I don't even remember anymore, but we've been going on since like mid 90s.
Yeah, I know you guys have, I think, like 15 records.
It's like a lot of records. Yeah, I don't even remember.
Yeah.
But the band itself is like a hockey team almost, because it doesn't have the same people as when the band started. Twice over, everybody has been replaced.
So yeah, that's what I was reading. It's kind of an interesting story. There's like, just the amount of people that have kind of been in and out of the band.
Yeah, I think with that amount of years, but I think it's kind of unique that we have been replaced twice. Everybody's been replaced. Like there's like first there was like one lineup, and then there was like 100% different lineup, and now of course the lineup is since many years 100% different again from the second.
You've been in the band since 95.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Or 96.
So when you started in the band, you've always been in the band from there on out. You haven't been in and out.
No.
Okay. And you also play with Richie Blackmore. Is that what I read?
That's true. Yes, that's true.
Okay, that's awesome. Yeah,
it is this like reincarnation of Rainbow, which was a band that he had in the 70s, and he did like almost like a little bit nostalgia thing with some festivals and stuff in Europe. Starting was it 2015 or 2016, so I've been part of that a few years.
That's cool.
Now, of course, this Corona thing happened, so nothing's been happening with that or with Stratovarius for a while actually live, but now it's easing up a little bit, but still no Rainbow shows.
Oh yeah. But with Stratovarius, I want to talk about the record. Was that all kind of done during this COVID lockdown thing?
It started way before that. I think we started writing on this stuff like 2017. I don't even remember now exactly, but it's not like, oh, there's a pandemic and let's make an album.
Let's work a record on it. Okay.
I mean, we were like naturally lazy. We didn't need the pandemic to
okay. Well, we'll get into that.
Yeah, it's not lazy really, but it's long story.
Right. Yeah, no. Okay, cool. Yeah, I was just asking about Richie Blackmore just because I interviewed he's in a band with his wife called Blackmore's Night now.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I had a chance to interview his wife, not him, but very, very, very sweet person. And
no, that's the funny thing with him. I mean, he used to be in Purple and Rainbow and stuff like that, but Blackmore's Night, it's actually his main focus. And this Rainbow, even though of course we are playing like arenas and stadiums and whatever, maybe not stadiums, but it's like quite big venues, but that I think he still sees that like as the basement act. It's not so important, well, it's important, but if there's a castle free somewhere where he could play with Blackmore's Night, it's like no, we don't do that. We don't do that festival with 50,000 people or whatever, because that weekend the castle is free. So
so interesting.
A little bit that priority, this acoustic stuff with his wife, which I think is very, very nice.
Yeah, she's got a great voice. It's a cool project. Well, let's get back to you. So born and raised in Sweden, and I saw that you have your brother's a drummer, so it sounds like you come from a musical household. What about your parents? Are they musical at all?
Yeah, my father was a musician as well.
Okay.
And I guess we almost got discouraged from playing bands, because I think from my father's background, we kind of knew that it was a difficult life. So I think at least when we were young, we had like other career paths ready. It wasn't like this all or nothing going for this music stuff. Definitely not, actually. But then the music industry just kept sucking us in. It was no avoiding it somehow. And I think we have been there since.
Okay. Well, Dad was he in a band when you guys were young?
He played like jazz, but he was like in a bunch of jazz bands. So it's like quite long ago, but like 60s. And he's quite famous here in Sweden. So
did you go and see him play? Would you guys go to his
gigs? We were too young when he died. I was like 4 or 5 or something like that.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
No problem. Well, okay. Shit happens, as I say.
Yeah. But I mean, it sounds like you guys have picked up, obviously, his many of his talents.
I think it's like heritable a little bit, this kind of talent. Yeah. And also, of course, you pick up also a little bit this thing that maybe you have an healthy attitude to it, so you don't think it's more than it is or that it's less than it is, because it's like, it's kind of a tough life still.
Sure. Anyway. And did you start off on piano?
Yeah.
Okay. And how old are you?
I think I was like 8 or something. And then both me and my brother took lessons, and then we quit the lessons for many years, and then we started playing in a band, so it was like these piano lessons were not like I wish I would have taken more, because I would have been better, but shit happens.
It wasn't something that you kept playing. You ended up stopping.
No, we stopped.
Okay.
We stopped playing. Both me and my brother stopped playing piano because he broke all his fingers, and we were both like, fuck this piano thing.
How did he break all his fingers? Now I'm curious.
In a bike accident.
Oh my gosh.
He was biking down. So I think he was chasing me, actually, and he hit something, and he flew off the bike, and he flew into this fence with his hands like this, like, and the fingers broke off.
Oh my gosh. Is he younger maybe or older than you?
Older, yeah. Maybe you stop with the piano for a while. The fingers were like this way, like up.
Oh my god.
Like this, like, no, like.
Is that what took him to drums?
I think so. In a way.
Okay.
In a way.
So when you decide to start a band, like, what was it like? Did you decide to go back to playing piano?
Yeah.
Or were you playing guitar? Or
no, I was playing like keyboards, like electric keyboards, like at the time. We had like a little basement band, but we didn't think that's gonna be it. It was more of a hobby. It was fun, but we didn't take it very seriously.
Okay. And then how do you get into playing seriously? Did you go to university or anything for music, or did you play it outside of school?
Nope. Like I said, we had like different career paths mapped out, kind of. So we were just playing basement bands, and then I guess the basement bands got bigger and bigger. And you get invited to some other basement band, and all of a sudden that other basement band has, like record deal, and it's like, what the fuck is going on here? And then somebody calls from the States, hey, I want you to play on my album, and then so it was kind of just like it kept rolling. But I think when I had been like a year or something in the States, I realized I probably would not go back to Sweden to this university and study technical physics or something like that, like solid state physics. Or I had a spot also at this mathematics. What do you call it? Well.
Yeah. So you're into like
become statistician, mathematician, or work with solid state physics. But at that point, 1 year in, I guess it took off. I mean, this Yngwie thing took off so severely that it was like, well, this is kind of fun,
Mm-hmm. Wow. Okay. So it sounds like you're obviously really good at math and science in that aspect of.
Yeah. I was like,
Well, kind of goes into music, right? I mean, with theory and just it's all comes back to numbers, right?
I think not really, but it's I think you
not
use
really. Not really.
Yeah. Well, I think you might use the same part of your mind, in a way. Like, sure. But of course, it's very different still. Like,
okay. So you get a call. Like, so tell me about this trip to the United States. Like, you're in a band and you guys are doing pretty well, it sounds like. Did you have a deal, or like, how do you?
we had like the Swedish band I was in, then we had a record deal, and somehow this Yngve had heard this album, and he was like, "Oh, I want to play with those guys." So he went down to jam with me and my brother here in the city where we lived, and then he left for the States to play with some other band called Steeler, and then he joined a band called Alcatraz, and then he was going to do his solo album, and that's when I got invited, and then my brother got invited too. So it was kind of just like,
you play keyboards and your brother played drums on the record?
Not on the first record, it was only me, and then on the next record it was like more of a band, because the first record was only meant to be a solo album. But then that took off. You know, it's the same thing. You know, you switch to a different snowball, and then that one starts rolling, and you go, "Oh, what's going on here?" And then he quit his Alcatraz band, and he formed his own band, and you know, like, so one thing just kind of led to another at that point very quickly. It's probably a good thing that nowadays things don't keep the same pace, because it was like, you know, from one year to the next, it's like different country, and you have to learn a new language, and you know, blah blah blah, the whole thing.
Sure. Wow. Wow. So then tell me about joining this band in '96, you say. How did that all happen?
The Stratovarius. Yes. It was like, I think it was, I had kind of given up on metal because I was living in the States at the time. So I figured, you know, around 96, it was all like grunge and hip hop and stuff in the States. The market was kind of consolidated, and the big labels were, you know, pushing things like that onto consumers in a way. But there was some weird little resurgence in Europe with this stuff. I didn't keep much track of it because I was not so often in Europe, but you know. And then I got a fax, because that's what we did back then. We sent faxes to each other. I got a fax from my brother, actually, who had gotten a fax from somebody in Japan at a magazine called Burn Magazine, who had gotten a fax from this Finnish guy who wanted to get in touch with me regarding joining his band.
Okay, so it went from he
faxed it to Japan.
He faxed to Japan to a magazine.
Thinking that somebody there would know what to do with it, and that magazine didn't know what to do with it. So they forwarded it to my brother, and then he forwarded it to me.
That's crazy that I eventually got to you, especially back then, and through a fax.
No, you know, you take the paper from the fax and you put it in, you know,
another one, you send it over, but to go from Finland to Japan to back to Europe to the United States, all through just hoping that this magazine might see the fax and actually I think that's crazy.
I mean, he knew the people at the magazine because they had been doing some stuff in Japan, so they had like some kind of connection there. And he was just like, well, maybe you could help. I guess he was tracking his brain. How do I get hold of this guy? So he was like, well, I think he lives in New York somewhere, but I don't have a number. So he tried somebody who might know my number, my fax number. So that's how it went.
Okay, so then you received this fax, and then you are intrigued by it, or it sounded like you weren't too, you know, into metal, or not into it.
Well, no, I was into it, but it was like
it wasn't happening, right?
It seemed kind of dead,
right?
Especially in the States. But I for some reason, I just, you know, like, this is really weird. You know, I haven't been in Finland for many years. I was there last time in like '89 or something like that, doing some pro, or maybe it was later. Actually, it might have been later than that. But I always liked Finland, and I was like, well, send a CD and, you know, I can listen, see what it sounded like. And then I really liked the songs. It was like, these songs are quite good. So then I agreed to do it, and he sent like this, we're going to pay you this and this and this, like exorbitant amount of money. So I actually had to get him down with the money. He was like completely crazy. We're going to pay you weekly salary, you know, like $4,000 a week or some ridiculous thing. Yeah, so I had to explain to him, this is not necessary. I will do it anyway. Just like, you know.
Wow, that's very humble of you. I would have been like, give me the money.
Yeah. Do this. No, but I thought also, you know, in a way, if you wanted to have any chance of this being anything that could turn into something,
like longevity,
idiotic that he would have to go to a bank and get money to pay for this. You know, because maybe there would never be the gig. Maybe there would be only this one record. You know,
right.
It's like I kind of didn't know what kind of momentum they had or whatever at the time. So I was like, well, the songs are good, so, you know, whatever. And then I promised him that, of course, if there's some live gigs or something, I'll just be there. You don't have to pay me like some retainer or something. It's stupid. And lo and behold, all of a sudden this gig started coming, and then we have to make another album, and then by that time it was like another snowball started.
Sure.
Rolling.
So when he sent you what their previous albums before you joined the band?
Yeah, I think so, and also like a demo from the album that I ended up playing on called Episode.
Okay, so Episode was the first album that you played on, and that was just through the fax. He needed you. He wanted you to play on that album, and it wasn't kind of it was kind of in the air if you were going to join the band full time, or
yeah.
Okay.
I think he wanted to make sure that I joined full time in case there were any gigs, but of course, I was like, well, are there any gigs? I don't know. I haven't done many gigs before, so I was kind of suspicious. But it was not super many gigs the first year, maybe 10 or something like that, or 15. I don't really quite even remember. Maybe actually in the fall they got more gigs. But after that, it really started taking off, and it's like this European scene in general was taking off at the same time. And of course, you might, when you are in the heat of the moment, you might attribute it to your own greatness, but it's of course also the scene was waking up. But I think we were a big part of at least the power metal scene waking up at that time, because all of a sudden there was like shitloads of people at the concerts, and we made a live record that was quite popular whenever that was, like 98 or something like this. And I think in a way, because we were so heavily publicized, a lot of other bands and fans and whatnot realized that the scene was waking up, and then you had more bands and you had more variety, and it was like somehow like an avalanche effect. Like there was, for instance, I know there were many Finnish bands who started when they realized how well we were doing, and I think it was just no bands had made it from Finland ever. I mean, it was like completely unheard of. There was one metal band called Amorphis that somehow made it.
Oh yeah, I know that name.
That was like a little bit earlier than us, like 92 or something like that. It was still like kind of like not a smash thing, because I think the market was not quite ready. And then of course there was like Hanoi Rocks and stuff like that in the 80s, but completely different style of music.
Yeah, so there was a massive, like really like heavy metal scene that was coming out of Europe for a while. I mean, then it was like the black metal bands that came out of there. It was like something that wasn't really happening as much in the States, right?
I think not at all here. Like, or there in the States. Like it was like I would say because I was traveling a lot between the different countries, it was almost like night and day. I mean, the amount of shows you could do, the amount of people that would show up at the shows. There was definitely something in the air that was not in the air in the States, and I think you can still see the after effects of this. I think metal is still very much stronger in Europe, at least this kind of metal. Like,
oh yeah, I totally agree. I mean, yeah, because I remember like bands like, I guess Cradle of Filth would be like the first big like European metal, like really dark metal, like black metal band that I remember seeing come across. And it was like, what era did you start seeing the United States kind of adapt a little bit to what was happening?
I think maybe 2001 or something like that. 2002, 1998, 1999. It was also a little bit. I remember first time I saw Nightwish in the States. It was like very small tour and terrible circumstances and stuff, but it got better and better, and they kept touring. There was bunch of other Finnish bands, like notable bands that came to the US. It was this Children of Bodom, who we knew very well at the time too. They were almost like a brother band also, like Sonata Arctica, Nightwish, Children of Bodom and Stratovarius were kind of the same, cut from the same cloth a little bit, even if it was different styles of music. But I think those three bands were particularly impressed, maybe not musically by us, but they saw that we could do it. And they was like, what, how is this possible? Like, well, you just have to go out and grab it. It's like just
sure,
have to, make records and go out and tour, and that's it. And I think
sorry, go ahead.
Children of Bodom especially, they focused a lot on the States, and I think it wore them out a bit. But I know they worked a lot in the States in the between, let's say 2001 to 2011, shitloads of touring, and I think it kind of wore them on mentally. Like, sadly.
Did Stratovarius tour extensively in the US at all, or would you guys stay mainly in Europe?
Yeah, I would say it's like 95% Europe.
Okay.
We have done like, I think it's 2 tours. Or is it 3? No, 2. One was 2005, and the other one was something like 2009 or something like that. Like, the 4-week kind of tour.
Yeah, but it just you probably are playing to these massive crowds out in Europe, and then when you come here, is it just like into the States? Is it just like a totally different?
Yeah, the places are smaller, but they have been quite okay though. I mean, and of course, not everywhere in Europe it's not massive.
Okay.
I mean, but it's like this. The infrastructure is somehow there more, and the deals are better, and people actually come to the shows. And like if you do a US tour, you might have, oh yeah, it's terrible. We have this like off day, and we have to play the Pizza Hut in Saskatchewan or something, like Saskatoon. Sure. Pizza Hut. It's like it's on the way, and you go like, oh, why are we here? Yeah. And the other thing is, of course, as the old American joke goes, that the cities in Europe are like 25 megatons apart. Like they are much closer.
Oh right, yeah, I know. You travel touring the U.S. and touring, from what I hear, like U.S., Canada, and Australia are like the biggest nightmares for bands to travel. I mean, to tour.
Yeah, it's of course it impacts everything from fuel costs to like how many days off do you have to have. Like it becomes, of course, much more painful to go to this Pizza Hut in Saskatoon if there's like a 14-hour drive before, and then after there's like a 21-hour drive to go across the Rockies somewhere. Like it's like severe mental impact. Whereas if you play Pizza Hut in Germany somewhere, the next city is like 2 hours. It's like very close.
But anyone that was in the States, or anyone from a lot of those shows out in Europe, if you told them to come to a Pizza Hut and see you play, would be like they'd have to shut down the city. You know what I mean? Versus like out here where you might be able to get away with doing something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's interesting. To speak on the new album, To Survive, you said you guys started writing in what, 2017? I mean,
I don't even remember, but we had this vague ambition to make an album.
Was that how long after Eternal came out? Because Eternal was 2015, so a couple years later, you guys just got the itch to put an album out, and then it took obviously a lot of time.
I think it's actually we had to break the itch to put an album out, because I think normally we could have just put another album out, so it will be out 2017, just like write it quickly and then produce it and make it. We could have done. We could really have kept this up with like every 2 years that we started, maybe 2009 or something like that. But I think, especially me, I was a little bit against this. I was thinking, let's slow down and focus much more on the writing than we have been. Because in my mind, the previous albums, they got more and more like this. We would write by Dropbox and chat, like WhatsApp or whatever.
Oh, interesting. So it was more of like a virtual thing. You were doing that pre-COVID virtual kind of sending files.
Exactly.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and I think it's because everybody's living in different cities, and of course, getting together, it involves like logistics and travel and stuff like that. Already 2015, it was like that. So of course, I wouldn't exactly say that we have been lazy because the album has taken 7 years. It's actually the other way around. We were lazy, and now we made it more difficult because we said we should get together as much as possible to actually sit in the same room and fight about stuff and test things out with a singer who actually has to sing the stuff. You write something like, can you sing this? And then you have it straight in your face. This is like garbage. I'm not going to sing this. Like, just write something else, or, this is stupid, which I think you don't get that with Dropbox, because you make demos, you sit at home, and everybody was doing this like silo approach where you are in your own silo and you're making a song, and you cannot envision it somehow to be
there's no collaboration, obviously, in the studio, or vibing off each other, like, oh, it would be cool if you did this, or let's not do that and do this.
Especially like negative vibing, because we are of course still Scandinavian people, so it can't be like vibing like no.
It's always, this sucks.
Exactly. Well, I think that's needed. I think to me the songs became much better for that reason, that there was some honest discussion about things, and especially with the guy who has to sing the things. I think that was for me the most important thing, that you could test things out with him directly, and you could see if he liked it or not. Because I think if you are delivering something that you are not believing 100%, I think with a singer it's like the most audible.
Right.
You know, it's the closest connection to your mind, and you know, somebody's forcing you to sing something which you think is crap, and then
there's no passion behind it, and you can hear that, I'm sure.
Or if there's hate behind it or whatever.
Oh, hate. That's good.
There should be the opposite. It should be something that he's like helped, first of all, helped write or has written himself. Or if he has not written it himself, he's at least like in the same room, and you go like, well, could you test this out? And you go, and he goes like, yeah, this sounds really nice. You know, like, and you kind of double check with the guy who actually has to deliver the goods, if it's, is this viable or not? Is this garbage or not? Like, whereas I would say the previous album, I don't think they are bad, but they could have been better if we would have done this. And to me, I wanted to hold back, pull this handbrake until we can actually get this workflow going, where people would get together in the same room. And we did that up until 2019, and you know, we managed to play also bigger and bigger venues. It seemed like the fees were going up and the venues were getting nicer and stuff, and it became apparent that you did not really need to have an album out. It's like somehow it's just like old world or old music industry thinking that the album recording cycle is controlling the touring cycle, but it's turning the other way around. The tail is nowadays like wagging the dog, where the live market, the live market is the important part, and the albums that you make are almost just like demos for playing live. So of course, in my mind, of course, if we are going to put a demo out, it should, to make the most impact, the songs should be as good as possible also. And let's not put like a demo out every two years, because
that's an interesting way to look at it, because I haven't heard anyone say that before. But it makes a lot of sense, just because you're in this streaming world, right? I mean, to have an album out, which is awesome. I love albums because it's something about, you know, listening to a project all the way through, and why songs were put in whatever, you know, order they were, and all of that. But like, if you're looking at it from like a business standpoint, you, like you're saying, it's more like a demo. Like, here's what we sound like, come watch our live show. Instead of I just think that's interesting to
recording an album. Recording an album, at least like in a 2 or 3 or 4 year perspective, it's like a money losing thing.
Right.
No, you definitely don't recoup the money that you spend recording it for many years. So of course, in that sense, also, if you make like one album every 6 months, you are putting yourself in debt in a way. Right. But not that it matters. I mean, of course, our record label might have something to say about it. But it's like still, you know, we don't actually sign. You know, they don't come after us for this debt, but it's a debt that's still there, you know, somehow. Before you start earning royalties. So in my mind, it's better to focus on the writing, and we actually managed to do this, and we managed to get together, and it was like kind of like different workflow. And of course, in the beginning, it's like, oh, you know, we haven't done this before, and it got actually quite nicely. And then of course somebody had to eat this fucking bat.
Well, I was going to ask you about that. So you guys have this nice workflow going. You're finally okay. Let's you know, get we finally did the together. Reverse. And then
we did the reverse from this pandemic thing. We stopped the Dropbox.
So then the pandemic hits, and are you guys like, let's just put this project on hold because it was working in a way we wanted to go through being in person and not going back to the Dropbox thing, or did you continue with?
No, I mean, what we did was like we kind of stopped until we can get together, and I think everybody was kind of happy to be at home anyway. I think it's in a way, for me, of course, I've been out doing this like since the 80s, so having a sabbatical is actually quite a nice thing in a way. But I think for everybody in this writing team, which was me, Timo, and Matthias, the guitar player, Matthias could not even get out of Brazil because he lives in Brazil, and they closed the borders and all the flights for, you know, like, it was like complete chaos for a few months there. And then we couldn't get to Finland to work on more stuff. So it's like, what's happening now? So It's just the wind.
Oh.
Yeah.
So it was just like, let's not continue forward right now. We'll wait.
Yeah, we didn't quite do that. Yeah.
So then you guys were able to get back in the rooms together, obviously, at some point after everything kind of let up a bit.
Yeah, it let up a bit in 2021, and then basically we decided to start finishing the songs. But one key thing was that we had not promised anybody at the label or our booking agent, something like that, that there would be an album until we knew that we had some songs ready. That would be
smart.
Everybody would be happy. Yeah, because that was another mistake we had made in the past. That we would tell everybody, okay, we kind of have some songs, they might be ready by September, and then of course everybody's thinking, oh, new album in September, and then you have to really rush.
Right. So this time around, you just kind of you kept it cool and didn't say anything until you were really ready to present the fact that you had an album.
Yeah, at least as far as the writing. And then of course we gave ourselves a lot of time to actually record the album, but that also got fucked up because the Corona thing was still actually more strong than we thought going on in the winter of between 21 and 22. There was like a lot of things that happened there that actually impacted the release date. Originally release date was May this year.
Oh, really? Okay.
So it's like small things, have cascading effects. And you see that, you see that all over in society now. Like there's like a small thing, in 2021, Lufthansa fires all their baggage handlers and think like, well, we don't have a big volume of flights now, so it shouldn't be a problem. And then all of a sudden, 2022, everybody wants to fly at the same time.
Yeah, everyone's like ready to get out of it. Yeah,
and there's like 500-meter high mountain of luggage in Frankfurt. Like, what happened? We don't know. Like, oh. Then everybody, there's inflation because of the war, and everybody wants to have a race, and then the airlines are going like, no, you're not getting a race. No, fuck, we are striking then. So it's like, okay.
Right.
So it's
right.
The summer festivals were interesting, but we actually managed to do all of them.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I'm really surprised. We also managed to play Prog Power in the States. It was this close to being cancelled, but
that's amazing.
Everything is just late. You call the US embassy to get your visa or something like that. It's like, oh, fucking forget it. It's like, it's a 2-year line now because everybody wants to have visas.
That's what I heard. It's very hard to get a visa right now, especially even if you're in a band that has like a legitimate thing going, right? Like a book tour.
It has nothing to do with that. It's just the backlog. Like,
it's just the backlog.
Yeah. And I think that type of thing, it's on every level. If you say, oh, my passport is expired, I need to go to the Swedish police to get a new passport. Yeah, there's like a 6-month line, like just get in line to get you. Oh, but I need it. It doesn't matter. So people here had to get like emergency passport. There's like some weird 6-month thing that they write by hand, like it was like,
right. And then who's going to believe that? You go to the certain.
No, they are valid passports, but still.
Sure. But still, wow.
No. So on every level, there's stuff like that it also happened to us with this release date. But I think in the end, it kind of fit. There was perhaps a couple of summer festivals that, we had kind of promised them that we would have an album out, and then we didn't have an album out. I don't know if they were pissed off or not, but I think in the end, it's decoupled. I don't see it as a huge thing that more people would come to these festivals because we had an album out or something like that. I think most of the places we played were already sold out, and the response was great. So it's like, and I think in the longer perspective, it's actually better to do the festivals to promote the album then.
Right. I was just thinking this. Now people are excited, right? They're like, oh yeah, I forgot. They got a new album coming out. Like, I can't wait. And I just saw them live or whatever.
Yeah.
So now
it's constant. This year has been constantly like that. It's like what they say, you get lemons, you have to make lemonade, and omelets, you have to make eggs. But it's like a constant pelting of fucking eggs coming out. Oh no, fuck you should try to make something.
Sure.
Like, I just made some raw eggs, like and one lemon hit me in the eye. I think we did pretty okay considering, and of course, to me, the songwriting is actually the most important component of this, and I think that's where we actually took the time, and we didn't like we didn't stress out too much. Quite obviously, since it's 7 years since.
Sure, but I mean, even then, like having all those kind of hiccups happen, was it hard to jump back in and go, okay, where were we? Like once, okay, it's fluidly we're able to get in and continue where you left off.
It's like riding a bike. It's very, very, almost like eerie. Like, oh, it's almost like the 2 years didn't happen. You are playing somewhere and it's like festival. People are drinking beer and it's like,
yeah. Well, that's amazing. The record's coming out on the 23rd, so in about 2 weeks, a week and a half or so.
I guess it's in 1 week. It's like next Friday.
Yeah, a week from tomorrow.
Yeah,
that's incredible. Well, so you have the festival. You did the festivals. Are you doing it to support the album, or just kind of you already played? So you're gonna.
Well, these festivals were postponed since 2020. A few of them. Some of them were new for 2021, and then they got postponed. And some of them were new for 2022. So it's like really this kind of mopping up stuff. And I think everybody was doing this. And it's like also people were putting on too many festivals, which sounds incredible for Europe. But I think in Finland, they really tried to regain what was lost these 2 previous summers by putting festivals. And some of them got canceled. None of them we played, but incredibly. And we also didn't lose any luggage, even though we did a bunch of we did a bunch of gigs. Actually, one piece. One piece on the whole summer. Like,
what was it? Anything super important?
No, it was like some cables and
easy. You could replace those pretty easily.
Yeah. It was kind of easy. But we were thinking ahead. What do we do in case like pieces are left behind? How would we handle it? We actually made some sort of plan.
That's smart.
But cool. Lufthansa was like super. That was the main worry for me for the whole summer, because we played Spain, and then we had to fly to Germany to play Wacken, and then there was a festival in Finland, all in the span of like 3 days.
Oh wow!
So, and only flights available were all stopping in Frankfurt, so it's like a little bit like going crisscross and going back down to Frankfurt and going up to Helsinki. But Lufthansa on that trip, that weekend, they only lost 1 piece. So it's like,
yeah, because especially in that small of a time frame. I mean, to have 3 days and 3 festivals, if you lose something, what do you gotta really figure it out.
Also, if with the connections, it was like some of the connections were very short. It's like 50 minutes in Frankfurt, which is like a huge airport, and 50 minutes to get the luggage from one plane to the other plane.
Right.
But it was the only way, because of the playing times and the logistics and everything, and the fact that all the flights left exactly on time, and if they didn't leave on time, they sped up a bit and landed on time, and just like hats off to Lufthansa.
Wow. Sure, yeah, that's amazing that it all worked out. Wow. Yeah. But obviously that must have been hectic and stressful.
It was.
Sure.
It was mostly stressful before it started, thinking how will this work, and then of course you go through your mind all the possible problems that could arise,
right,
including missing the second gig, because but hey, it's only Wacken, it's only like 80,000 people, so it's like
oh man. Well, I appreciate your time today, Jens. This has been awesome. Thank you so much for hanging out. I appreciate you.
No problem. It's fun.
Yeah, I do have one more quick question before I let you go. I want to know if you have any advice for aspiring artists.
I guess don't quit your day job, because I didn't have a day job, but I planned on having a normal job. I would say that's actually solid advice, because it might be very rocky. And the other thing is just to practice. Practice like a motherfucker. That's all I can say. Don't quit your day job. Practice like a motherfucker. That's it.